Parenting is so freaking hard. And parenting a kid with ADHD can feel relentless and chaotic and sometimes downright impossible. It's easy for those gentle parenting techniques you used to dream of implementing to just go out the window and end up, with your house filled with tears and guilt and screaming. And if the parents have ADHD, you can multiply all of that by 10 million. So today I want to go over 9 approaches that have helped us as parents with ADHD immensely in parenting our kiddo with ADHD, and a bonus tip at the very end for the rest of the family. And let me just say at the outset that if you are a parent struggling right now parenting a kid with ADHD, just know that you're doing a great job and you're a good parent. Okay? The fact that you love your kid and you want to do better and you want to do right by them, those are, in my opinion, the most important ingredients for being a good parent. So let's go. Number 1, have an open dialogue about your child's diagnosis and about how their brain works. Period, the end. Okay? I know there's a lot of discussion and controversy around this idea for some people, but here's the bottom line. If you hide this from your children or don't fully explain what's going on, then 1, they're going to feel like an ADHD diagnosis is something that they should be ashamed of and is something to keep hidden. And you don't want to start someone off in life feeling that way when they inevitably find out. 2, talking to your kid about how their brain works will empower them and help them understand what's going on inside. And if they understand how their brain works and they understand that they're going to struggle with certain things, they can recognize those things and have practice recognizing those things and be in on the solutions that they develop to sort of help themselves as they're moving through school and through life. And when they're in on the solutions, there's a higher likelihood that those solutions will be right for your specific kiddo. So build those skills young because they're going to need them for the rest of their lives. And I have never met an adult that was glad that their parents didn't tell them about their ADHD diagnosis. So for example, we explained to our son how his brain is going to struggle with sitting still, with paying attention in class. He's going to have impulses to do certain things. He's going to have a propensity to be addicted to things like video games at this age, right? And so helping him understand that will help him understand those decisions that he's making or those urges that he has. And it's actually given him, along with medication, a lot of ability to modify his behavior and a lot of pride in his ability to actually do the things that he wants to do, behave in the way he does actually want to behave in school, but before he just couldn't control it. And so in class now, he will actually share with his classmates that he has ADHD and explain it. And it's actually helped some kids that he's interacted with realize, I struggle with some of those same things too. And it normalizes it, and his teachers really appreciate it. And it's just all in all been a really good thing. Number 2, have expectations of your children, but don't expect perfection. Okay? And so it's important to recognize that kids with ADHD are going to be less mature than kids of the same age, especially in things that require executive function, like emotional outbursts, processes and things like that. So it's important to know that, but also to expect them to be respectful humans who are part of the family system and have responsibilities. If we don't do that, I feel like we are robbing kids of the happiness and feelings of achievement that they get when they get to meet those expectations and have them recognized. And second, your kid will eventually have to go out into the world and behave. And so I think it's really important to use home as the place to, as much as you can, have those expectations set so that they know what's going to be expected of them when they go over to a friend's house or they're in the classroom. And starting that early and reinforcing that often is key, and I think so important. And it's really easy, we've done it too, to just take the easy way out. do things for them, ignore it, let it ride. And really in the end, it's a long-term losing proposition to do that, even though it's harder in the short term to have those expectations and try to keep them in place. Like, I get it. Okay, number 3 is the flip side of this. Like, let it go like Elsa, okay? Choose your battles. Not every mistake, infraction, outburst, or sassy comment needs to be an entire argument or lecture, right? These kids with ADHD hear a lot more negative feedback throughout their lives than a neurotypical kid. And it's easy to see why, because often they are misbehaving a little bit more in class. They have emotional outbursts. Like, there's a lot of correction that ends up happening. And so if you can let it go, your house will be a more peaceful place. Your relationship with your kid will be filled with more positive interactions than maybe it is right now. And this is super difficult to do. But the other thing to remember is often attention will give them dopamine, whether it's positive or negative, okay? And so they will start to seek out whatever attention they can get. So you do not necessarily want to give every single bad behavior your attention. Ignoring it sometimes is actually the right move. A good resource for this is the ADHD Dude podcast. He has a lot of really, actually I think it's called ADHD Guys podcast now. They have a lot of really good resources on what they call authoritative parenting, not authoritarian parenting, and not permissive parenting. And it's been really helpful for me and my husband to kind of find middle ground between his much more structured and my much more permissive tendencies as we're working on parenting our own kiddo. Number 4, and this is backed up actually by a lot of research on humans and also just neuroscience research in general, but shape behavior with immediate positive reinforcement, okay? So this means when your child does something that you want them to do more of, you notice it right in that moment and you at least give them a good job or praise. You can have certain things you're working for where you actually give them some kind of reward, but picking out the thing that they're doing right in the moment that they're doing it is important. And you can use this to actually shape behavior. And what I mean by shape behavior is that if you want a kid to go from behavior A, where they're just kind of not behaving at all in the way you want, to behavior B, there are probably about 4 stages in between. So to get them from here to here, you can't expect them to just teleport, right? When they start to inch in that direction, you want to praise the progress that they've made in getting towards behavior B by noticing that. And then the next time, if they happen to do the thing that gets them to the second step of that behavior, pick it out as it goes. And eventually what this does is it teaches them, I get positive attention when I do this. And it helps them, because you've reinforced it right in that moment, know exactly what is expected of them. And kids with ADHD do very good with very clear expectations. And they also do really well with positive reinforcement, simply because I think they get so much negative feedback in their daily lives about their behaviors. This can be really hard when your kid is misbehaving to shape their behavior using positive reinforcement. And sometimes you have to work really hard to find something to complement, to kind of pull them out of that funk. But this is way more effective than punishment is, because punishments are delayed. And when a kid is about to act impulsively, he's not going to pause, or she's not going to pause and think, okay, if I do this impulsive thing, what's going to happen way in the future? I'm going to have this punishment. This is literally the definition of impulsivity, is something you do without thinking. So punishments do not actually work effectively for kids with ADHD. Neither do things that are delayed, right? So that's why it needs to be immediate and it needs to be positive. I'm not saying you should never punish your kid. Like, there are certain things that they will do that will require consequences, and I am pro consequences. But your main mode of sort of getting to the behavior you want, which is actually one of the goals, in my opinion, of parenting, is helping kids learn how to behave so that they can function in the world. If that's your goal, then shaping it with immediate positive rewards is the way to go, the most effective way. Number 5, related to this, is to praise the growth, praise the effort, praise the progress, rather than praising the traits. Okay? This is called a growth mindset, but it really works, because what it does is teach your child that they are capable of taking on new challenges and making positive changes. If you praise a trait, like if you tell a kid, you're smart, what that's going to do is cause them in the future to avoid anything that might make them look not smart. So they won't take on as many challenges in school, say, because they don't want to fail, because if they fail, it means they're not smart. Whereas if you say, wow, you really worked hard on your math and look how far you've come. Now you can do subtraction and addition, right? And like, look how much better you're doing. You've been working so hard practicing your math and you did really well on that test. Or you practiced your spelling and look, you got 8 out of 10 this time. Showing them that they can make progress and that the progress that they're making and the effort they're putting in is what's making you proud teaches them to be proud of that themselves. Okay? And teaching kids that you can do hard things in life and take on challenges and learn new things is like a gift to give someone. And I can tell you this as a professor that teaches upper level college students, the more you can teach a child early on that they can do hard things, that they can face uncomfortable situations and get through them themselves without the parent solving it for them, the better off they're going to be. So start now. Number 6, give them structure and give them as much independence as you can. I know, I actually literally cried when they told me the best thing that I could do as a person with ADHD who didn't know I had it for my son with ADHD was to give him structure at home because I have no structure. So how do I teach my child and give him structure? So there are some really simple things though that you can do. Checklists have worked really well for us, especially when they were younger, to give them kind of like, here are the 6 steps for getting ready for bed or for getting ready in the morning. And this allows you to also give them independence because they can go look at the checklist and know what they need to do next without you harping on them all the time. This teaches them to take control over, some of the basic things that they're doing in their daily life. So it also gives them agency from an early age and an ability to do things themselves and to know that they can do things themselves. And if your kiddo is too young to read, you can just use pictures of a toothbrush for brushing your teeth. And actually what this now means is that our kids kind of have an autopilot morning and an autopilot evening. And it's not like it always goes smoothly, but they do at least know the 5 steps or whatever they need to do. And we don't have to manage that. And it saves us a lot of energy. And when you have ADHD yourself, saving all the energy for other things is great. Number 7 is help your child learn to identify their emotions. They're going to have a lot of big emotions just as children, and kids with ADHD and even adults with ADHD tend to have bigger emotions than most. And you can't stop the emotions, okay? And emotions themselves are not bad. But teaching your child, I'm going to have these emotions, I need to figure out how to regulate them, is a great approach to start really young. So both of our kids, this actually came from their school, made themselves calm corners in their room. So they made this little like nook with a comfy chair and all their stuffies and some fidgets and books. And when they're upset and they need a minute, they say, I need to go to my calm corner. And we try really hard in this house that if somebody says they need a minute or two, to just let everything pause and they go calm down. This makes it so that everyone can actually hear each other because when they come back, they are much calmer. And it also teaches your kid to self-regulate their emotions instead of just suppressing having any emotions at all, which I think is a great skill, again, to start young instead of trying to figure it out as an adult. Number 8 to me is one of the most important ones. And I think this generally applies to parenting, but particularly for kids with ADHD. Make sure your kids know that you love them no matter what. So it's important not to relate your anger at their misbehavior to how much you love them. So if they're misbehaving, sometimes I find with my kids, for example, they just need a hug, even in the middle of a meltdown. And when I give them that hug, it will calm down a lot of the feelings, and then we can actually talk about what's happening. It can be easy when you're really mad or annoyed at your kids to like not want to hug them or engage with them or get down on their level. And I get it, I've been there. However, in your child's mind, your affection is tied to how much you love them. And so if you can sort of divorce how much you love them from how mad you might be at them, that's so important. And I try very hard at the end of an argument to tell them, I love you no matter what. I love you exactly how you are. Even when I get really mad, that doesn't mean I love you any less. And if I act in a way that would make them think that, or I said something mean or whatever, I just apologize for that and make sure I reinforce, like, I love you no matter what. I love you exactly how you are. I love you even when, you might be misbehaving or you're making me mad. And I think for ADHD kids who hear so many quiet downs and stop this and don't do that, right? Like that's just part of what they're going to hear a lot of when they're young, that knowing their parents are sort of this constant source that they can always go to for love, no matter what, unconditional love, is just so important. So saying that, showing that as much as you can, I think is one of the biggest things you can do for your kid with ADHD. Because regardless of how everything else in their lives go, if you're kind of a safe space and a source of love, like that is going to be huge for them going forward. Number 9 is probably one of the hardest ones, I will say, but it's to model the behavior that you want from your kids, or at least try your best. Like, I fail at this one all the time. And it's really hard if you're a parent with ADHD who's triggered by, noise and chaos, like me and my husband as well. But if you are someone that's constantly yelling, berating, your kid, it's hard to not expect that your kid might communicate with other people in that same way. If you find that your kid is constantly yelling or criticizing or being sarcastic to you, sometimes it's worth looking and seeing whether you might actually be modeling that is how we communicate with each other in this family. Or maybe that's how you and your spouse talk to each other, and that's what they're seeing for communication. And so just being aware that like they're modeling what they see is helpful to try to at least sort of corral your own behavior and make some positive changes. And when you screw it up, which, like I said, we do all the time in this house, then acknowledging what went wrong and that like, oh, I really should not have yelled there, or I shouldn't have spoken to you like that. I was just very upset, but it wasn't okay. That shows them that it's also okay to mess up, and then you own those mistakes and you apologize, right? And so I think like you can use the opportunity for when you do something you didn't want to do in front of your kids or speak to them in a way to show them how we make things right when we, are human and make mistakes. And now for the bonus tip for the rest of the family. It's very easy to center your household around the behavior and the needs and the emotions of your ADHD child. But if you have neurotypical siblings in the house, for example, it is important to not completely center the family around one child over the other who might be more compliant or peaceful or less disruptive, because they're in need of attention as well. And so it can be really easy for them to kind of get put aside because they are not as obviously in need or as demanding of your attention. And so we run into this a little bit in our house, where to intentionally take time to check in with my daughter, who has not been diagnosed with ADHD, who's much more sort of a peacemaker and much quieter. And so it's important that she has a chance to have some discussions where nobody's interrupting her and she gets to talk about her feelings and process her emotions too. And just taking the time to do that in whatever way you can. And like, trust me, I know that this is hard, but showing them that they matter too is also really important, and it'll be better for the whole family. All right, and that's it for today. There's a link in the description below if you want to sign up for my email, and thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.